All right, we're talking with Alex Newman, correspondent for The New American in Paris at the United Nations Climate Summit, and you are at COP21 at the Press Center right now, correct?
I am, yep. We're here in the Media Center at Le Bourget, the private airstrip where the celebrities and the dictators and the presidents are all flying in on their private jets to lecture us about our carbon emissions.
Well, that is ongoing right now. Every day there's going to be new Hollywood celebrities, governors, mayors, and presidents and potentates coming in on that. The first couple of days, though, of the conference, you spent quite a bit of time at the alternative conferences where quite a number of scientists and experts, policy experts, were discussing the reasons why we should not go ahead with this UN treaty. Give us a breakdown, kind of a summary of what you saw there, the people you interviewed.
Well, on Monday, we went over to the Heartland Institute's Day of Examining the Data. That was co-sponsored by CFACT and the Competitive Enterprise Institute. And that was really exciting. They brought in an international team of scientists from Australia, from Canada, from the United States, from all over the place. And what they really did was they took apart the entire global warming narrative from start to finish. I mean, some of them talked about carbon dioxide. It's the gas of life. It's extremely beneficial. It's greening the planet. It's helping the oceans. And the Earth is really starving for carbon dioxide. Then, after that, we had different talks, some on the policy elements of all this, others dealing with, the fact that there's been no global warming for almost 19 years and counting, despite the fact that every single one of the climate models relied upon by the United Nations has been calling for warming throughout that whole period, as we've seen increases in CO2 concentrations. So it was a fascinating experience. They had a panel discussion on energy and the effects of these climate policies. Basically, they showed that these so-called climate policies are devastating to the most vulnerable people on the planet. I mean, you're talking about keeping the populations of third world countries in a permanent state of underdevelopment or undevelopment, without energy, without access to reliable food supplies and medicines. And, people called it criminal. People said, we're talking about killing tens of millions of people here, and that's unacceptable. And it's not just a political problem or a theoretical problem. These are real lives that are on the line. And so it was a really excellent conference. Unfortunately, there was no media there. A few showed up for the first press conference, and they were really just mostly interested in making a scene. I think they wanted to get kicked out or screamed at or something, so they were talking about fossil fuel industry, which, of course, none of these organizations are, bought and paid for by the fossil fuel industry. What they said was actually the COP21 is partly financed by the fossil fuel industry, which is true. So that was interesting. They were not interested in any of the science. They did not stick around for the scientific presentations. One of the scientists, Dr. Soon from the Harvard Smithsonian Astrophysics Center, talked about the role of the sun in the climate, for example, but none of the global warming activists or the fake journalists were interested in any of that. They just wanted to make a scene and continue promoting the narrative. And then after that, we went to, the next day, we went to the French Counter COP21 Summit. It was also fascinating. We heard from a number of experts, professors at European universities in physics, geosciences, chemistry, policy experts, lawyers, doctors of philosophy, epistemologists. I actually did get this wonderful little cup here. It says, "I love CO2." And, one of the big topics there was how beneficial CO2 is for humanity and for the plant life and for the animal life. So, totally different message than what you're getting here at the COP21, and fascinating stuff.
Who are some of the scientists that were there? I know there were quite a few, but who are some of the ones that were more notable?
At the Counter COP21 Summit, one of the ones we interviewed was Dr. Professor Marco from the Catholic University in Leuven. He was a professor of chemistry, and he really explained how this whole global warming alarmism has become a religion. He explained that your carbon dioxide emissions are your sins, and then you need to pay, climate reparations and carbon emission offsets and these things to kind of assuage your climate sins. So that was a really interesting analysis. He explained, of course, that CO2 is a wonderful gas. It's extremely beneficial, and the planet needs more of it. The plants are starving for CO2. That's why they pump CO2 into greenhouses when they want to grow things. At the Heartland Institute conference, we had Dr. Soon come, the astrophysicist, who's recently been attacked by the climate alarmists. We asked him about that. He was very upset about it. He says, I wish they would focus on the data and my conclusions and my papers that I'm publishing in the peer-reviewed literature, rather than, coming after my family and these kinds of things. So that was interesting. We had Dr. Carter from Australia, I think John Cook University, the chair of the Department of Earth Sciences down there, former chair. And he explained how, carbon dioxide is extremely beneficial. The Earth is starving for carbon dioxide. Back in time, the atmosphere had 10 to 15 times the concentration of CO2 that it does now, and the planet was doing wonderfully. We also had Dr. Fred Singer, who was fascinating talk. He focused a lot on the UN climate models, pointing out that they're totally wrong. They can't even predict the past, much less the future, and so we certainly should not be using them to predict the future or to make policy based on them. He showed the rate of warming that we've had over the last 19 years, which is 0, versus the UN climate model predictions. I think that he had 100 and something up there on the board. And all of those UN models predicted warming, and of course the satellite record, the temperature, the surface data record all show no warming over the past 19 years. At least the surface record did show that until NASA altered it last year or the year before. And so there was a number of very prestigious scientists there. We spoke also with Dr. Wolfgang Mueller, the head of the European Climate and Energy Institute, and he spent a lot of time in the third world, in Zimbabwe, in India. And what he said is, what these poor people really need is energy. They need cheap and affordable and reliable energy, not climate reparations for their dictators, not carbon hysteria. And he pointed out that real lives are on the line here. This is not just some kind of a joke, something to take lightly. It's a really serious issue, and it's absolutely unfair to expect these people in third world countries who want to develop, who want to bring up their standard of living, to live in perpetual poverty so that these Western globalists can have their climate regime or whatever it is that they want.
We know that you have to get to another engagement very soon, so we're going to come back and have you give us another update on things as soon as you're done with that.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.